Hi everybody, very nice to see you on the internet. So in class today we had learned how to make homemade Play-Doh, which was great and fun. But for those of you who were not able to do this with us in class, or didn't have the time, didn't have the permission, just weren't able to do it for whatever reason, here's a video version that you guys can look at later. So here we go. Now, make sure if you're making this, you have permission from a grown-up or a responsible person who's older than you in the house, because you will need to use a stovetop, and I want to make sure that you don't get in trouble over Play-Doh, because that would be pretty bad. Don't want that. Play-Doh's great, but I don't want you to get in trouble for it, and I need you guys to stay safe, because I care about you. So, things that you will need. A tool list. We love it. So the first thing you are going to need is a large bowl. Very nice. Put that over there. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a large pot, which has been freshly cleaned. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the stove because that's where it's going to end up. You will also need a stirring spoon, big spoon, very good. You don't always need it, but it's helpful if you have a spatula, because a lot of this Play-Doh is going to want to stick to this spoon. It's going to be like making mashed potatoes if you've ever made mashed potatoes before. You'll also need measuring cups. I have two. I like this one because it's really easy to see where the measurements are for big things. A lot of things that we're using today requires 2 cups. This is really easy for me to see. I also have this little one, which is also helpful because it's easier to see the parts that make up a cup. So this is 3/4 cup, really easy for me to see. I could do it on this one, it's just going to be harder for me to do. You will also need measuring spoons. They're great and they make fun noise when you do this. They're the best thing in the world. You're going to need them. They're going to help you measure things that are really small. So teaspoons and tablespoons, they're going to be your friends. I don't know anyone who ever uses these two. I don't know why they're here. That's what you need for tools. As far as ingredients go, you're going to need 2 cups of flour. Ta-da. You are going to need about 3/4 cup of salt. And all this recipe stuff will be in the comments. It'll be in the description. It'll be there for you. There's a million different ways to make this. I'm going to show you but one. You will need, in this particular recipe, 4 teaspoons of cream of tartar, which is something that bakers use a lot. If you don't have this at home, you can use lemon juice. You can sometimes use baking powder. There's a lot of workarounds for this, but this is the one that I'm going to use because I have so much of this stuff that I never use. You will also need some water, pretty easy, and you're going to need about 2 tablespoons, not very much, of vegetable oil. That's what keeps your Play-Doh nice and squishy, doesn't let it dry out. You're also going to need Baggies, because that's what you're going to keep your colors in. If you want to keep this nice and long-lasting, keep it in a bag. If you want to add color to it, you're going to do that in a bag. Lots of cool colors that you can make with it with food dye, which is the last thing that you need. Food coloring is your friend. That's what you'll need. So that's what you need as far as ingredients and supplies go. So let's get to it. No one likes a long YouTube video. I think, I don't know. So I've got my bowl, and I'm going to start with all my dry materials first, my dry ingredients. I say ingredients, they aren't technically food, but this is not for eating. This stuff is going to be super gross. Play-Doh you buy from a store smells amazing. This Play-Doh is not going to smell amazing. It's not going to smell terrible, but it's not going to be something you want to eat. But if you don't add color to it, it's going to look just like mashed potatoes. Forbidden, unedible, inedible mashed potatoes, not food. It helps. If you're going to put it in a bag, label it so someone in your home isn't like, oh boy, a delicious snack. And then they get a terrible surprise. Okay? We're going to use this later. This is important. Right. So, dry ingredients first. We need 2 cups of flour. So, get your pal, your measuring cup. Get your other pal, your flour. And you just fill it up to where it says 2 cups. It's great because it's really easy to see whether it's on the inside or the outside of the cup. That isn't enough. Ooh. Poofed at me. That, wiggle, 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 wiggle. That's about 2 cups. That's perfect. Put it in your bowl. Plop. Here we go. That was easy. done with the flour, so you can just put this away or put it to the side so it doesn't get in your way. This I like to use the little measuring cup for, because the next thing you need is 3/4 of a cup of salt. Just regular old table salt. So, fills up a little slow because it's got a tiny little nozzle. But this is what makes your Play-Doh dry out if you make something that you want to keep. So I'm at 1/4 of a cup. I'm at 1/2 of a cup. That's not enough yet. I think I have just enough in this container for 3/4 cup. Oh, am I going to make it? There we go. 3/4 of a cup. Perfect. Dump that in there. Looks delicious already. Don't eat it. It's not food. All right. Now, the recipe I'm using calls for cream of tartar, which is great if you have it. If you don't have it, don't worry. There's a lot of different ways you can make this. This is asking for 4 teaspoons. So I'm going to get my handy spoons. Teaspoons are great because it's about the size of a grape. So if you don't have measuring spoons, you can kind of guess a little bit. So when I take a scoop of something, this is definitely a teaspoon, but it's way more than it needs to be because it's kind of formed a mountain. So I take my finger and I go whoop, take off the extra, because otherwise it's no longer a teaspoon. It's like 2 teaspoons. Plop that in. There's 1. Second one, whoop. That's 2. Third one, whoop. There we go. Last but not least, you know that noise is coming again. Whoop. 4. There we are. Perfect. Thank you, teaspoon, for your wonderful help. All right, put the lid on this so I don't get this mixed up in anything else. And this is all of our dry stuff, which is great. Super easy. And it helps if you mix it up. You can use a spoon. You can use your hands. This stuff isn't going to hurt you. It's just flour and salt and cream of tartar. Kind of feels kind of cool if you stick your hands in there. Kind of like sand. Kind of light and fluffy. It's weird. Try it out. Make a mess. Not too much of a mess, but make a little bit of a mess. Just make sure you clean up after yourself. Get some of that off your hands. Now this next bit is the part where you definitely need to make sure you have a grown-up who knows what you're doing. Okay? Because this involves a stovetop. And while it's not going to be very hot, it is going to be something that you should keep an eye on as when you use any kitchen appliance. So the next thing we need some warm water to make all of this dry stuff into what's going to end up being Play-Doh. Heat plays a big role in this. So the next thing is asking for 2 cups of lukewarm water. Lukewarm means it's not hot, but it's not cold. Okay, so you want to be able to have warm water in here. I don't know who Luke is. I don't know why he's warm. Don't know why they call it lukewarm. But get some warm water, 2 cups, in your measuring cup. I have to go off camera because that's where my sink is. That water's cold. It won't do. And now this water is warm. That'll be perfect. It's not hot. It's not hurting me. It's just warm. Great. Now, my water in here is a little bit kind of foggy. Looks like the world's, kind of looks like aquarium water. It looks gross. It's fine because you're not eating this. There's a little bit of flour in here and that's why. And now, esteemed guests, you get to experience stove cam. It's like pick up the entire internet and put you on this shelf. Now, when you're working with a stove, you want to make sure that you know what burner you're using, right? Lots of stoves either that have a coil top or a glass top will have different coils on there, and each one has its own specific sort of knob that you got to work with. Now, in order to stay safe and in order to be correct, I'm using this one in the front, so this is the knob that's telling me which one I'm using. I want to set it to medium heat. It's not going to be super duper hot. It's not going to be, you know, cool either. So, turn that knob on. The light's on, meaning the element, the stuff that makes this hot is on. Ooh. My laptop closed. Goodness, if I had a blooper reel, that'd be on it. Okay. So, maybe I want to use something to prop that lid open. Hopefully it'll stay. I'll use a blob of Play-Doh. How about that? Got enough of it. You guys can't see it, but I've literally just put a blob of Play-Doh to keep my laptop open. That lukewarm water that you just put into that measuring cup is going to go in here for the world's worst soup. Mmm, delicious. Slightly floury water. Your last ingredient is going to be 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I've had people use olive oil too. It's a little fancier, but you can use vegetable oil. This, you're going to use a tablespoon. It's about the size of a golf ball. Okay? You probably like balance an egg in here. Bigger than a teaspoon. So undo the lid very carefully. Gloop, gloop, gloop. Pour that in. Gloop, gloop, gloop. Put that in. Put the lid on here so this doesn't spill, because that would be a nightmare to clean up. Maybe I stir the spoon around in here, get it off with a spoon. There we go. Put these things away. Then, get your pals the big spoon. Maybe a spatula. It helps. You don't need it, but it does help. And now your job is to take all these dry ingredients that you've made and put them right in there. The heat from this water that's also being heated by this element is going to make all this sort of lightly cook a bit so that you can make this into Play-Doh. It's going to thicken up, it's going to become really hard to stir, and that's how you know you're doing it right. So I'm going to pour all this in here, be really careful. I don't want to make a mess on my stove because I'm the only one who's around to clean it up. Alright, now your job, and this is the hard part, and you may ask someone who's got some, big strong arms, or you can develop those amazing Popeye arm wrestling arms. Once you put all that stuff in there, it's your job to stir it up until it looks like the world's worst mashed potatoes. Right now, it looks like yucky melted ice cream. It's really watery, it's lumpy, doesn't look great at all. But as you keep moving it around, all those things are going to mix together. It's already starting to thicken up. You can see it's no longer like really watery. It's kind of looking a little bit like pancake batter. It's doing its job. It's going to go from being very lumpy to not lumpy to then very lumpy again, which is kind of gross. But since this isn't food, it doesn't matter. So your job of stirring this all the time while this is sort of being made, it's really important. Moving that around prevents any one part from getting sort of more cooked. If I left this alone, I'd get this like disgusting sort of biscuit cooked on the bottom and this sort of soup on top, which isn't anything anyone wants. I'm also, if you notice, now this pot has handles, but they're off camera. I'm also holding this pot still so it doesn't wiggle around all over the stove. As this gets thicker, and you can start to see that happening, this is going to start to become really difficult to stir. So if I hold it steady, I know I'm going to have an easier time and a safer time doing this. If you look on the bottom of the pot, if the camera can show, you can see some of it starting to sort of stick to the bottom of the pan, the pot. It's starting to stick to my spoon now because it's getting gloopier and a bit thicker. It's going to start to resemble mashed potatoes very soon. You stir this up for maybe about 2-3 minutes. Put on your favorite song, and by the time that song is done, you've got from really gross, watery flour stuff to some pretty half-decent mashed potato looking Play-Doh. Now at some point a lot of this is going to stick to my spoon. And that's where my spatula pal comes in handy. Scrape that off. Get off of there. Bad Play-Doh. Then you stir it up again. That way the stuff on your spoon actually gets incorporated in here too. You see how it's getting lumpy again? We're almost where we want it to be. It looks gross. It's like cake frosting now. I'm going to describe this in food terms. I don't know why. This isn't really food. That's the best I could come up with in terms of a comparison. So that stuff on the sides is still really watery. The stuff in the middle is getting pretty firm. So this probably needs like maybe 20-30 seconds left. It's getting really hard to stir. My arm's getting a little cranky. And you can see that it's no longer falling off my spoon. It's just sticking there. This looks like the most unappetizing thing in the world. Which it should, because this isn't food. Okay. Now, at some point, my spatula on here, it's gonna sort of peel up from the bottom part of the pan like dry mashed potatoes would look. Okay? And that's when you know you're about done. See how it's kind of starting to do that now? I could like lift it up like a whole piece here. That's when it's about done. It's starting to really have that warmth, bring everything together. It's kind of coming up in one piece. It's rolling up like you would expect Play-Doh to do. Ooh, my hands are really fighting me here. And I can't even really stir this up. I'm just kind of pushing it around now. This is done. So, like any smart and safe cook, as soon as I'm done with a stove, I need to turn off that burner element. Or the inside of it, whatever it is I'm using. So, there's my dude right here. It's on medium heat. I gotta turn that off. The light's off, the burner's off, but it's still gonna be hot. So I wanna make sure I move this, whoop, over here. Okay, it's pretty warm. This needs to cool off. Don't touch it because it's gonna hurt your hand. It won't burn you probably, but it will be very uncomfortable. And you'll touch it and you'll go, ooh, no thank you. So, whoop, back over here. It doesn't take long to cool off. And if this is in the winter or in the cold months, you could set that pan outside on something like a stone or the sidewalk, and it'll cool off pretty quickly. By the time I'm done showing you how to add the color, that will be nice and cool. Be easy to work with. Now, I had this here earlier. It's nice and cool. But right now, it's not that exciting of a color. It looks like mashed potatoes. And especially if you don't want someone in your home to mistake it for mashed potatoes. Adding a color is a great way to do it. And it's fun. So, if you have food coloring at home, you can add a lot of really cool colors. You can mix cool colors. You can experiment a little bit. I could break this up into little pieces and see, oh, what color happens if I add this bit of food coloring? Try it out. Worst thing that happens is that you're at like a whole $1's worth of flour, salt, and vegetable oil. So try it out if you can. Maybe get permission first. But if I want to add color to something like this, I am going to roll it up into a ball. I'm going to struggle with a box of Baggies, successfully get a baggie, open it up, put it in there, help me. You could be done at this point. Close the bag, your Play-Doh's gonna last for a couple of months, even longer if you keep it in a fridge. But if I wanna add color to it, I'm gonna take my thumb and I'm gonna stab it right in there. So I've got like a terrible looking donut hole dumpling. I don't know, it looks like clay with a hole in it. I don't want to get food coloring on my hands or on my clothes because it will stain and make a terrible mess, and I do my laundry, so I'm going to have to deal with that. So I want to make sure I don't get any messes on me. So I'm going to pick a color that I like, or be very fancy and clever and mix some colors that I like, and mix it up in this bag. So I have not done much with green. And no one's going to go in my refrigerator and say, oh boy, green mashed potatoes, my favorite. At least I hope not. Okay, take the lid off of your food coloring. Don't spill any on your hands or on your clothes. That would be bad. So, put a little bit in there. You can always add more later. So, I don't know, 10 drops maybe. Should be good. Put the lid back on. Put that away so it's not going to get you in trouble. You can see it in that little divot there. I'm going to get some of the air out of the bag. I'm going to close that bag. And then I get to squish it. And that food coloring that starts off really dark, it looks like a solid color black. But it's green, it's just really concentrated color. It's gonna go a long way. So I'm gonna squish this a bit so I have my moldy green mashed potatoes in a bag. And I'm going to just keep doing this. If I were to take this out of the bag and try to squish it all and blend it together, my hands would be really green. It would look like I got in a fight with Shrek, which I wouldn't do. Shrek seems like an upstanding citizen. But at some point with my squishing, now don't go too crazy with the squishing because you break the bag and then you'll get it on your hands anyway. But once I've squished all this in here, so it looks pretty okay, and it looks green rather than having like these really dark, almost black colored drops of color, then you can take it out of the bag and do the rest with my hands. So a lot of that color is just going to soak into this Play-Doh. squish, squish, squish. And if it gets all, this reminds me of like Sage Derby, which is a cheese that probably none of you have heard of. And I keep on squishing. Squish, squish, squish. It's almost ready to come out of this bag, so I can just do the rest. Because if I just did this all in the bag, it would take forever. But it's kind of fun to squish around, kind of fun to play with. It's like a good, you know, tactile experience. Okay, so I'm going to try to sink this to the bottom a little bit. Open up this bag. It's tricky because my hands are really dry from flour. Take it on out. It won't stick to the inside, which is nice. And then just squish it a bunch. And look, no food coloring on me. I'm all clean because most of it is in the clay, the Play-Doh itself. So this looks like, I don't know. It's kind of cool. Like if you like the look of it being a little marbled like this, go for it. It's your Play-Doh. You can do what you want with it. If you wanted to add more color to it, put it in the bag and add more stuff to it, but it's mixing together really quickly now. And as you keep working with it, it's going to incorporate that color. And the nice part is that when you're done mixing it, that food coloring will continue to spread a little bit more evenly throughout that Play-Doh. So your colors are going to look even brighter in like an hour because it's just kind of soaked into everything. It's nice and even. So the Play-Doh I mixed last night for my test for here are a lot brighter than they were when I mixed it all up together. So this is a really easy way for you to make some sculptable stuff at home. It's pretty inexpensive. It lasts a long time, and this particular recipe will give you a lot of Play-Doh so you can share it with anyone else at home with you, which is very nice. So this is pretty much mixed up as well as it's going to get. It's a really nice green color. On one of my cameras, it kind of looks like mint ice cream. On the other one, it kind of looks like a big blob of moss. So from here, you can start sculpting with it. You can start playing with it. You can put it in the bag and put it away for another time. Do whatever you want with it. It's yours. It's done. And in that time in which I've been showing you how to make this into a color, I bet the batch I just made is cool enough now to finish. So, how are we doing, Play-Doh? I wouldn't say that it's cool, but it's warm. It's lukewarm. Okay, so there we go. It'll be less stretchy and less a little sticky once it cools off a little more, but this could have color put into it now and it would be fine. If you want to clean up, just use hot water and a little bit of soap. It's pretty easy cleanup. Like all good artists, like all good cooks, clean up your workstation so no one else comes in and they're real mad about it. I will have the recipes and things in the description of this. We've also gone over it in class, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were able to make this. And if you have any questions, let me know. Enjoy your Play-Doh, or, you know, it's copyrighted. Enjoy your, home fun time dough. You're not exactly Play-Doh, but very close to Play-Doh. Bye, guys.